It's amazing what can grow from a small seed. When I was growing up, food was something you acquired through hard work, not just by making a trip to the supermarket. In a family of 8, there are a lot of mouths to feed, so everyone took advantage of whatever resources were available. Hunting, fishing, and gardening were a part of our everyday life. We even went out to glean the fields after the farmers had harvested their crops. Gardening was a way of life. There was a lot of work to be done every day. I didn't like working in the garden. Pulling weeds in the hot sun seemed like the ultimate punishment. I remember wondering why we didn't just go to the grocery store like normal people. I couldn't wait to grow up and get out on my own and never set foot in a garden again. Fast forward 40 years. There are a lot of new things sprouting in my life. New freedoms, new responsibilities, new home, new church, new life partner. Our favorite activity on Sunday is cooking together. I've been cooking since my teens, and Wes has been teaching himself to cook over the past year. We both bring talents and passions to the kitchen that keep us in good eats. We'll cook up a mess of something, or maybe a couple of messes, eat like kings, and then portion the remainder up for the freezer to have for lunches and dinners during the week. We have a motto: there's no excuse for going hungry in this house. There's always something delicious in the freezer. We cook with a lot of fresh herbs. One week alone, it seemed like we spent over $10 on prepackaged herbs from the store. Another seed was planted in my mind. I started thinking about the economics of growing some herbs at home in containers. I didn't consider that gardening per se, just frugality with a touch of common sense. I brought home 3 herbs in pots: thyme, rosemary, and oregano. They lived on the back patio. Wes has a green thumb. He already had some flowers and other plants growing well back there. Before long, we were talking about putting in a couple of planting beds on the edge of the porch. We decided on 2 beds, one for herbs and one for flowers. The beds were 24 inches by 24 and were just a few steps away from the kitchen. The herbs thrived in spite of our frequent harvesting. 3 plants became 4, then 6. We finally had all the herbs mentioned in that Simon and Garfunkel song, you know, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. About this time, a friend at work told Wes about the Sustainable Food Center, SFC. They support local gardeners with seeds, plant sets, and compost, as well as resources and advice. Our 2 small beds were getting crowded. The idea of having an actual garden space was beginning to take root. We took some homemade soup to SFC's potluck and seed swap and came home with some new friends and a bunch of seeds. Seeds aplenty, but nowhere to plant them. We started some of the seeds inside in small peat pots. We also attended SFC's Spring Resource Giveaway Day, so now we had baby potted plants that needed a home. It was time to get serious about gardening. We set up a 10-foot raised bed in the yard beside the house. We went slightly wild at first, planting everything in sight in our little 15-square-foot bed. As things started to grow, we realized how crowded the garden was. One weekend, we doubled our planting space by adding a second planter box to the end of the first. After a few relocations, all of the plants had room to grow and breathe. Working in the garden, vigilantly watering and watching for encroaching weeds and pests, is almost a daily ritual now, and I love every minute of the work, weeding and all. We're still cooking up a storm, sharing the bounty of our kitchen with friends and coworkers. Some of our first herbs have grown so big they had to be divided, and a few plants have gone off as gifts. Another curious development from gardening is that I've begun to look for other opportunities to get more fresh fruits and vegetables into my diet. No more Mr. Meat and Potatoes. It feels good to be making more healthy eating choices. We take pride in our garden and enjoy preparing meals from foods we've grown ourselves. I look forward to spending time there, even time spent pulling weeds. Who knew that a small seed planted so long ago would yield such a harvest? Thanks for hanging in there through the credits. Here are the outtakes. Enjoy. In a family of 8, there are a lot of mouths to feed, so everyone took advantage of whatever resources were available. Hunting, fishing, and gardening were part of our everyday life. Hunting, fishing, and gathering. Gardening. Blah. Bleep. Let's record that over. And then portion the remainder up for the freezer to have for lunches. Lunches. Oh, let's lick that cap over.